Hello and welcome back to the AFL High Performance Podcast. My name is Jack McLean. I'm your host, and today I'm lucky enough to have Ryan Clayton on as our guest. We'll be discussing breaking silos as our key topic, how integrated models drive team success. So whether you're a staff member working in team sport or an athlete yourself, looking to maximise your team success in 2026, no doubt you'll get some gems. If you're listening in live, feel free to send through some questions and we'll find some time a little bit later on. But welcome, Ryan. Thanks for jumping on, mate. Really looking forward to this chat.
No, the pleasure's all mine, mate. I really appreciate you having me on, Jack.
We no doubt in the strength and conditioning side of things, and being an ex-athlete yourself, there'll be a fair few people that are tuning in. They're aware of your background, but I guess for those that aren't aware, mate, I guess where did it all start? High performance sport for yourself. Where did you discover the passion for it, and take us through the different experiences you've had on your journey so far?
Yeah, well, obviously, professional rugby league player from an early age, probably aspired um, right from the age of 6. I kind of fell in love with the sport and obviously met some very good strength and conditioning practitioners along my way as a professional athlete. So kind of just first of all, I wanted to be a physio, and then realised very quickly that it probably wasn't a thing that I wanted to kind of go on with. And then Essence Strength and Conditioning was probably the more suited route for myself. So while I was playing, I studied while I was playing, completed that, and then did an internship at Sale Sharks, where I met one of my mentors in Nigel Astley-Jones, who's currently the assistant at the Wallabies. And then it flowed from there. He got a job at the Raiders, and I moved from the UK to Australia. And then from there, just bounced around, went to Canberra Raiders and then the Brumbies. I've done a few small secondments to in the Wallabies and Australia A and Barbarians, which has been quite from a rugby league point of view, was an eye opener to go to different countries, which rugby union is fortunate enough to be around the world, a global sport. So been really fortunate up to now.
Fantastic. And what about strong influences? No doubt there've been a few in those different environments you've been in as a player as well as a coach, who have been, I guess, the strongest influences of your career so far from a philosophy point of view.
From a philosophy point of view, probably, well, obviously Nigel, who gave me my first kind of gig in pro sport, probably from hard work, dedication, and detail. I probably learned a lot around that kind of way to put high performance systems in place. And then probably secondary was a guy that I met through the Brumbies, was a guy called Brad Mayo, who's head of performance at Munster at the minute. He kind of really brought it to light, an integration model at the Brumbies and how to put it together, and probably managing people was probably the big one from Brad. And yeah, from a philosophy point of view, probably speed, probably Dean Benton, who's world renowned. He was the head of the Wallabies at the time when I was at the Brumbies, and probably from a speed, I've kind of clicked philosophies with Dean the most, and learned the most from a probably speed perspective from Dean. So multiple people. My kind of philosophy is trying to take a little bit from most people and work my own way through that and make my own journey from things I've learned from different practitioners.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, mate. Thanks for sharing, and probably provides a fair amount of context into the topic you chose today and why you're passionate about it. Those that have influenced your career so far. What about highlights, sort of moments that are spring front of mind that you're most proud of?
Obviously, being a former athlete, a rugby league athlete, getting to the grand final, the NRL grand final in 2019, even though we were unfortunate to lose that day. I don't know if you remember it. It was the referee kind of got in the way. which is pretty famous against the Roosters. Just the occasion. I don't think I realised how big that was for the club. The club hadn't been to a grand final for 30 years. And to get there with that team, that group of players, I think was really special. And probably one a little bit more recently with the Brumbies. A team hadn't won at Eden Park against the Auckland Blues for 12 years. And we managed to do that last year. So that was probably another one where you kind of rewriting the record books a little bit. And yeah, you don't realise how big an occasion and what that meant to people in the club who'd been there a long time and past players. You probably don't realise what that means to people until you've actually achieved it, got to a grand final, or you've beat Auckland Blues at Eden Park. So yeah, those probably the main two that kind of stuck out.
With the win against the Auckland Blues, did you guys try something different that previous teams hadn't tried before against them, or what was sort of the most effective things that sort of came together that day?
I think it was a perfect storm, a little bit in a certain way. We'd actually been in Hamilton the week before, and we'd stayed in Auckland, and we'd got a little bit of a toweling off the Chiefs. And I think everyone's pride was a little bit sore. Physically, we'd probably got beat that day. And then Auckland Blues are a big, aggressive team. So I think it was a perfect storm, as if we'd probably let ourselves down a little bit physically the week before. So everyone was a little bit heightened in that area of the game. And we started really well. We defended really well. And then the last play of the game, it came down to a scrum and a penalty kick, and we ended up winning 21-20. So just getting over the line in the last 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, it was a special win, especially because it hadn't been done for so long.
Yeah, fantastic. Very good. And what about the flip side, mate? Obviously, both as an athlete and as a coach comes pressure and challenges on the daily. What are some of the biggest challenges, I guess, you've faced professionally, and what did you sort of learn, or how'd you go from experiencing them?
Relegation as a player was a big one. I don't know if not a lot of Australian sport has promotion relegation, but English sport, your livelihood, everything's on the line, really. So that was probably, from a playing point of view. From a coaching point of view, probably one of the biggest challenges that I found, I think everyone found it challenging, was COVID. So within COVID, your small group training, you've done a full pre-season, and then the season's off for a period of time, and then we kind of get everything going up in a bubble. You're doing small group training, and then all of a sudden you're going to play a game where it's probably the unknown of how that was going to go. We actually at Canberra Raiders, we actually went all right out the back of the bubble, not doing a lot of team training, and then kind of went okay. We actually thought we would pick up a few more injuries because the preparation wasn't a normal kind of prep. But we kind of went all right out the back of that. So probably the challenges around that was probably coaching. A lot of the coaching you have to do inside was masked. So learned a lot around probably non-verbal coaching, how important verbal coaching is, but maybe my positioning as a practitioner, where to position myself so everyone could see the demonstration, because my verbal cues aren't going to be as effective. I think things like that I probably learned a lot around that, especially game day warm-up, where there's crowd interaction, noise and stuff like that. So having my non-verbal cues on point, I probably learned a lot around that through COVID.
Yeah, it sort of brings up, I remember speaking to coaches and like what you sort of touched on, the constraints of training in small groups and in different situations, and a lot of solo sort of one-on-one training. But I think some big takeaways as an industry was how much the athletes can do, and how robust they really are with little prep, and how much what's the minimum effective dose, which gets thrown a little bit around, but also how robust these guys are and what they can handle in stressful situations. But we'll dive into the topic, mate, rather than getting too carried away with side topics. But an integrated model, I guess, what does that mean to you, and what does success look like for a department that's looking to work on their integration and collaboration?
Well, an integrated model for me is everyone pulling together in one direction. So at the Brumbies, we kind of have a game model where the game is the pinnacle, and we work back from that. So an area of the game that we want to improve, or highlighted in our review process, will then be underpinned by how we train and our training principles. And then again, that is underpinned by our strength and conditioning, and how we kind of direct our importance in certain areas. So to give you an example would be, we might have highlighted in our game model, we want to be the best ball carriers in the competition. First of all, how do we measure that? So we can measure that by acceleration. We can measure that by post-contact meters. We can measure that in training and game. So our analyst is integrated within the system, because he's going to be our measure point. Our S&Cs can be measured on acceleration metrics. Our prep to train can be measured by how fast we can accelerate over 10 meters, or our change of direction mechanics. And that it then can be underpinned by our strength power in the gym. So for instance, we could be working on low body strength power to kind of complement what we're trying to work on the field. What we're trying to work on the field then complements how we train, and hopefully that then gives us an outcome in a game, and improves our game so we can win more games, because that's probably the end point. The other point with a kind of an integrated model is kind of trying to keep everyone involved. So I mentioned there the analysts, the S&C, the coaches. So trying to get everyone aligned in how we want to play, I think is really important from the get-go. So whether you're doing a roundtable discussion on how we get better, I think it's really important to be open and honest from the start of how you want to improve, and how you want these athletes to improve. And I think that then can inform something such as retention and recruitment of athletes and staff. Again, having like-minded people that can challenge, always for me is where the golden nuggets are in performance. So we're all aligned in one area. Again, players and staff, I think, in my experience, enjoy an integrated model because it gives everyone a say within certain areas that potentially that they probably haven't had before. So I think it's really, it works well at the Brumbies. I really enjoy watching the players trying to improve, and then it's a way that I've learned over a period of time that I'm really excited for.
And diving a bit deeper into I guess, like you mentioned, the ball carrying and acceleration from a physical perspective, how over the preseason, how much do you like it to be objectively measured? Like a 0 to 10 meter acceleration test, or whether you're using GPS, and how much do you sort of lean on the coaches and the athletes and the analysts themselves with the subjective in terms of how they feel and how they look in, I guess, the context of the game, the stuff that's a little bit harder to measure?
Yeah, I think both are important. Obviously, as an S&C coach, we want to see 0 to 10 improve. And that is really important. From an integration model, I think we probably heavier around more the subjective kind of measurements of ball carry. So maybe like post contact meters is a way of showing dominance in ball carry. So you can measure that per carry, per game, squad average. So obviously certain players are going to have certain physical qualities that give them an advantage, or certain positional will have more opportunities to show post-contact meters. So that is just one way that we do it. So, but I think as an S&C coach, I still like to see that really objective measure improve. I think giving players feedback on, yes, you did that in prep to train. Can you recreate that 4.6 meters per second, 4.7 meters per second acceleration into contact while catching, while making a decision? I think that's where everyone wants to go in an integrated model. Because at the end of the day, if you're running in a straight line, that's one thing. Can you produce the amount of force to be a good accelerator? But it's another thing to be able to make a decision and move your body, to be able to manipulate a defense, to be able to be more efficient in your ball carry. So I think to answer the question, I think we are down the probably analyst route, even though I still think the 0 to 10, I'm not letting go of the 0 to 10 anytime soon. But yeah, I think more subjective, or a game. Are you influencing the game? That would be my my answer, I think.
Yeah. And I guess for the athletes listening in, or coaches as well, what are some good sort of benchmarks, maybe if we break up the forwards compared to the OBs, in terms of that 0 to 10 that you like to see over a pre-season, to show, okay, I think we're in a pretty good spot come games. Our post-contact meters is going to be going up with that player.
We've got he's actually injured at the minute. We've got Tom Wright, that's probably the quickest over 10 meters. He's 1.35, and then it ranges to everyone. I think we've all got a few that are over 2 seconds for 10 meters. So yeah, individually, I think it's really important to go individual on this. Individual small improvements, small worthwhile changes to athletes. So it's all individualized, really, from Tom Wright, who accelerates. He's really force dominant in the way he accelerates, where someone like Corey Toole is a little bit more of a floater, or he uses a different strategy to accelerate. Both are very good accelerators. He uses more frequency. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's probably got total different mechanics to a lot of other people, but that's his strategy, and it's very effective. So yes, we look at ways to improve, but I think you leave those kind of top end athletes alone a little bit, in my kind of experience. Look for small ways you can do it, but they're obviously elite at the way they do it. So that's kind of my philosophy on that.
Yep. And with Corey and Tom, for athletes that are looking up to those, like your young developing athletes, do you have a tendency to try and coach them more to be like Corey or like Tom, or is it more just letting their strategy come naturally and focusing on their strength and their intent, and then coaching more how they move, like their technique and those sort of things?
Yeah, well, obviously both use totally different techniques to be efficient. So I think it's about analysing players' stride frequency, stride length, and then working out what works for them. And then I know it's the old age thing. Do you work on someone's strength to make them better, or do you work on their weakness to try and improve? For me, if there's no kind of injury, if they're not getting injured because they're proficient in one way, then you kind of just work on that to improve their strength. And then can that tissue tolerate the way that they are elite accelerators? And if all that's fine, I think you just keep working on that strength to try and improve them. And what we've seen is, Tom Wright is an elite accelerator, and he makes the most line breaks, tackle breaks. So it's something that we really heavily focus on within our training and system. And then probably from a younger athlete, you asked the question around younger athletes, and I think just getting some technical coaching early, I think that would be really important. We've kind of got a philosophy that a lot of our technical coaches are really working with our junior athletes from an early age to try and ingrain mechanics early to kind of one performance and one injury prevention. I just think it's really probably undervalued from an early age. So that's something that we try and work on really in our younger age groups and junior athletes.
Yep. And going back to the integration model, have you been in a situation as a leader or in a senior sort of position where you're noticing maybe a silo popping up in the organisation, or perhaps there's just things aren't flowing as integrated as you'd like? What are some strategies for managers and leaders to, I guess, use and lean on to help bring people back in line, I guess, or to, on the same page?
Yeah, I think, probably the problems come when either injury or lack of performance. I think people probably get a little bit nervous around whether you've changed from an integrated model or you've made some changes to your program where people break off there. I think having regular meetings and regular alignment early on within the pre-season, just to say this is why we're doing it. Having people have a say in how we do it, I think is really important. Just to get everyone on the same line and working in the same direction, and then probably just having a look at your own area as well, within and being vulnerable within your own area. And what I mean by that is, if something is going wrong, being able to hold your hand up and say, I think we need to make some tweaks, or we need to go in a different direction, or whatever we're doing, just for the betterment of the team. So as a leader, I think it's really important to show a little bit of vulnerability, that it's not everyone else's fault. You can hold your hand up and say, this is my fault. I should have communicated this better to the coaches, or this drill, or this philosophy, where we're trying to aim. I think having your game model kind of in the background, I think is really important as well, to create that alignment of how we're trying to train or how we're trying to improve our athletes. So I think reverting back to a game model is when things aren't probably going as well as you hoped, is really important, because it does give everyone kind of verbal, or not a verbal, or something that's on paper that we all agreed to is the way that we're going to try and train and make these athletes better players. So yeah, I think probably that's probably the main one that I've seen.
Yeah. And you mentioned that the game model and an area of focus might be around ball carrying. How many areas as a group do you guys sort of think's the sweet number to identify that you're going to get after over a pre-season to help team success?
Good question. I've always liked, if you slingshot everything on the board and you try and focus on too many things, I think you kind of dilute, one, the stimulus, and two, the chance to improve. So probably at the Brumbies, we probably have one or two in a defence, one or two in attack, and probably one or two from a set piece point of view, because our philosophy is heavily reliant on set piece at the Brumbies. So yeah, probably that's where I would probably aim at. So it's clear and concise. There's not too many things. It's pretty easy to kind of identify where when I think you've got too many things going on. I just think it probably gets a little bit diluted and a little bit like crazy, kind of too messy.
Yeah, it makes sense. You don't want to spread yourself too thin, being average at many things, but go after a few that you can be elite at, world class at.
Yeah, and I think a few kind of go hand in hand, even on the opposite side of the ball. So defensively, like ball carry or defense dominance. So if you're playing some kind of competitive game, you can analyze both in one action. Who was dominant? Why was he dominant? Whether it's defense or attack. So I think both can go hand in hand, and drills can have multiple different outcomes from both the attack and defense. But as long as it's within what we're trying to achieve as a team, I think that's important.
And it sounds like with the ball carrying, that fed the need to measure acceleration. With the other areas that you put up as a club, do you come up with tests as a department around those to measure sort of physical, if you reach the mark over pre-season from a physical point of view, or do you not necessarily need to make a physical test for each of them?
Well, like I said, like back squat and lower body strength power, we'll test back squat, and we'll test some kind of jump metrics, whether it's CMJ. So we'll test these kind of things. Have these athletes improved in a certain area that will complement the way that we want to train and get better. So yes, we do have an element, like everyone's going to want every athlete squatting 2 times body weight, but realistically, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Every athlete in your squad's not going to do that. So, but for me, it's, has the athlete improved? Has he got better technically, or the weight underneath the bar? Has he got better in the period from start pre-season to end of pre-season? And then for year on year, I think it's really important. Longitudinal data. I've been lucky enough to be at the Brumbies. This is my 5th season. So having longitudinal data on players, have they improved year on year? And then you mentioned diminishing returns, and then what point do you switch the program to some change the stimulus to kind of, for me, I would change, if you're squatting 2 times body weight, we then do switch it to more of a power program and focus on more expression of force rather than the raw max strength. So that's one way we would progress an athlete over a period of time. But yeah, I just think it's really important to have them metrics and them standards to be able to refer back to, of how you compare yourself to your peers as well as yourself individually.
Yep. And I imagine a key area of focus when you want to be integrated as a group is communication. Do you lean towards the importance of structure and having scheduled meetings on a weekly basis, or do you tend to prefer to have things in the open for some more corridor sort of comms and chats on the fly?
We probably do a little bit of both, like probably most clubs, but we probably have structured. We have a structured meeting as a high performance unit on a Monday, and that's kind of preview. So we preview the week. So that's from schedule. So the schedule's handed down to me, and the coaches will put the schedule together. Then I'll present the schedule to the rest of the staff. I'll present the strength power. The speed coach will present what he's going to do that week with from an acceleration, a change of direction, and a VMAX point of view. And then even the rehab will be previewed that week in that meeting. And I try and keep it short and concise, because I think any kind of long meetings, people lose attention span. So I try and keep it to 20 minutes. And it's just a brief overview of this is where this player's at. This is where we're trying to go with the schedule or the weights. And then obviously we carry out the plan. And then we have a review meeting on the Friday. And that's basically just a self-check. How did we go? Are there anything that popped up, any red flags? That again goes to the physios. The physios kind of report back, this guy has got tight lumbar spine, he's got tight calf, or he really struggled with illness on Tuesday. He probably needs a period of deload, yada, yada, yada. And that's probably the meeting then where I kind of put a few dot points together and then transfer that to the coaches. So we only have everyone in the room once a week, and then probably a preview and review meeting, and probably the rest is done on the in the corridor, like you said. So I think that's really important as well, to kind of little micro comms as well. But we only have 2 meetings. It's a preview and a review meeting at the end of the week.
And do you like to, or does someone who's facilitating the meeting send out an agenda prior, or put up an agenda on the wall, or is it more go around the room and a bit more informal?
Yeah, so the agenda, I'll write the agenda and I'll put that out the night before on a platform that we use, and then each areas. So basically, it's the schedule, the weights, the preps, the rehab, and any kind of red flags. And in the review meeting, it's pretty much similar, very similar, but it's probably a little bit more individual around the players, how everyone's reacted to the stimulus of the week. Are there any red flags leading into the game or the next week? And then probably that's where we discuss a lot of our return to play or return to train from an injury point of view. That's where the physios and the rehab coach kind of saying, next week, this is the plan. You can reintegrate, or he can do this drill, this drill, this drill, but can't do that drill, or he's fully fit. It's a full week of training available for selection. So that's where we probably nail all that kind of, because we've got all the information of the week. So we've got all the return to play metrics, we've got his integration, how he's gone, and then we kind of reiterate that to the coaches, either through an email or a sit down meeting post captain's room.
We were talking off air earlier around different lengths of pre-seasons, and some can be too long. And you almost need to protect the staff from the players and not get too many injuries from just training hard all the time. But also condensed schedules where people have international duties and players are in and out, and it can be quite hard to get that team cohesion. What do you reckon is the sweet spot in terms of duration of a pre-season, and what do you base a successful pre-season off? Is it 80% availability, majority of training complete, or is it a certain amount of players reaching certain benchmarks? What do you think? What do you hang your hat on, I guess, in terms of success?
The only thing that I struggle with availability is we all want our athletes available, right? But there's a certain amount of how am I going to say this without sounding ruthless? There's a certain amount of injury that's probably acceptable in pre-season, I think, because if you don't push boundaries, then that's where the magic is, where we can all run a program that's kind of safe and get 90%, 80% availability, and then your performance is poor. So I think there is a balance to pushing athletes to get to the next level athletically without tipping them over the edge. And I think that's individual basis. And for me, it's about improving that individual as a rugby player, firstly, and then athletically underpinning that. So I think it's a lot different from a junior athlete to a senior athlete, what their pre-seasons can look like. So, for instance, a senior athlete, he's probably hit a lot of his PBs, and is that a maintenance program or small increases in certain areas, certain improvements, where your junior athletes can make bigger kind of leaps in their athletic and their rugby pathway. So to probably put it into a nutshell is going to be quite hard. So I would say probably just individually getting better at being a rugby player and getting better athletically, whether that's in your positional area as let's say a prop is max strength as a young prop. 9 times out of 10, that's an area where they will need to improve, or whether it's your body composition as a centre, or whether it's your top end speed as an outside back. I think it can be very individual to how you want to get better to complement yourself as an athlete. Did that answer the question? I'm not too sure.
Yep. And we've probably spent majority probably being middle late October, around pre-season. But what about the challenges in season from an integrated model? How is it different to pre-season, and what are some tips for I guess coaches and performance staff looking to bring this in or enhance the integration going into next year?
Yeah, I think pre-season we try and be really polarized in our intensive and extensive metrics. So what I call an intensive metrics is acceleration, deceleration, change of direction. We focus 100% of that on one day, and then the next day we are extensive metrics, which is our high speed running, our very high speed running, and our speed exposure above 90. So we try and be really polarized in pre-season to what we're trying to aim at, and that comes down to drill design with the coaches. I think it's really important to have connection with your coaches. What are you trying to aim at from a rugby aspect, and if that aligns with what I'm trying to get from a metric point of view, I think that's where the magic happens, when both align and I'm getting what I want, whether it's a speed outcome or whether it's a fitness outcome or a conditioning outcome, and the rugby coaches are getting a rugby outcome. So I think that's where the magic does happen. Probably in-season modelling is probably changed a little bit. We probably do go to more of a mixed model in season, where it's predominantly intensive with a little bit of extensive on the Tuesday or the game day +3 or -4, whichever way you kind of do it, and then we have more of an execution or a fast day on game day -2, where we're looking at more top end metrics, but there obviously is some kind of intensive drills within our extensive sessions. So probably the difference between pre-season and in-seasons, probably in-seasons really polarized, as in this is what we're aiming for. We're trying to limit in extensive meters in intensive days and vice versa. And then in seasons probably goes to a bit more of a mixed model.
Yep. Anything on this topic, mate, that we haven't touched on before we start to wrap it up?
Anything? Probably the biggest thing that I've seen from an integrated model is probably rehab. Obviously, you're a rehab coach, so you'll probably be familiar with this. Probably involving rugby coaches in the process from early stage. So, for instance, if we are talking around a prop who's got a lower body injury, what can he do? Or a hooker, can he do 100 throws a day, seated on a Swiss ball? Kind of prop work on his neck strength and his upper body max strength while he's injured, and involving rugby coaches in an integrated model within rehab, I think early stage and late stage, I think is really important, and it does kind of give some autonomy to that rugby coach to be able to say, well, he is ready or he's not ready. And I think that's probably one of the big changes I've seen in the last 10 to 5 years is coaches getting more involved in that rehab process. from an integration kind of point of view. And I think it does make people more aligned in their thinking, because of the old age silo is the rugby coaches want a player A back as fast as possible. He's one of the main players, but the rehab or the physio is holding him back because he's not quite ready. I think if coaches are involved in the process, they actually see the player's not ready or is ready. So as a rehab coach, have you seen something similar or?
Yeah. There's definitely different models and departments where I guess high performance medical teams are open to it, or some might perceive it as risk and not understanding the pathology. But I think the best programs where you can is integrate early, and I guess our role is to build the constraints of what they're ready for on each day, each week. But mentally, I think from the players, it's the best product because they've got a different voice, they've got some variety in their training, they feel connected to the program. But also, when ultimately we work back from the game, which is sort of what this whole podcast has talked about, and enhancing the rugby athlete. It's for the coaches that are big on it. It's one of the best opportunities to really develop because it's one-on-one, which is quite unique, really, where you're always managing large groups. You finally get an opportunity to focus on their game specifically. And I know, speaking to coaches, when they are involved, that it helps the head coach from a selection point of view as well. Like you're talking about, where are they really ready to perform, or they might be ready to play, but they're not performing at a really high level. Whereas if you just judge it off one main or two main training sessions, it can get lost in with the rest of the athletes. There's plenty of benefits to it for sure. Player confidence as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, I was just about to say it was probably the confidence of coming back, and let's, for instance, a hooker. If he's been out for 12 weeks and he hasn't thrown for 10 of them, the first time he throws is in training. He's probably going to be a little bit, his confidence might be low if his first one's a mistake. If he's been doing 100 throws for 10 weeks, it's a lot of throws. So maybe the integration is a little bit easier, and the performance benefits and outcomes are more beneficial down the road, especially younger athletes as well. I think an older athlete has got that muscle memory where they've thrown 1,000 lineouts anyway, where I think younger athletes, sometimes it's a one-on-one coaching. 9 times out of 10, it comes down to like a one-on-one coaching session where I've seen some real benefits, even though it coming out of something that's negative in an injury. I've seen some real benefits from some one-on-one coaching in a rehab process. So I think the positive out that is that you can work on rugby when you are injured and improve yourself as a rugby player.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, great way to sort of wrap it up. But no matter what, whether your coach is tuning in, where you can make an impact, strength and conditioning stuff, of course, it was quite tailored to that, but medically as well, how everyone has a piece to the puzzle, I guess, that we're all trying to solve the same thing, team and individual performance. Last few questions, mate, outside of the topic. In your work life, what makes you angry or your pet peeves from a sort of industry perspective?
Probably one thing would probably be there's only one way to do it, and this is my way, and that's like a closed mindset from a practitioner's point of view. I think there's many different ways to do it, whether it's integrated or non-integrated or mixed or whatever. I think having a model that suits the players that you have and the coaches is really important from a buy-in perspective and an outcome. So I think it's not one size fits all, and that goes from strength sessions, speed sessions, rehab. And I think, probably that kind of mindset probably grinds me the most, and probably the lateness. I've been a stickler for lateness and punctuality, so I think that got ingrained in me early from my granddad, who was military. So that's probably one that kind of grinds my gears a little bit.
With the first one, the closed mindset, have you had an experience before where you've been able to shift that a little bit, whether it be a player or staff member?
Well, I think and again, it comes down to the individual. Sometimes, yes, obviously, there's been lots of times where players have said, "I think we should, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or why don't we do more of this?" Or certain practitioners aren't probably aligned with what you're trying to do. And I think it just comes down to education of this is why we're doing it, or a conversation, an open and honest conversation that from that athlete, say, or that coach, to say this is why we're doing it, and it aligns with the club philosophy. And if you haven't got a why, I think that's when you're in trouble. So if you haven't got a why we're doing it, I think that's where you kind of fall down as a practitioner, especially with players and staff. Is if you can't tell them the why, then that's probably a big red cross for someone, because it just gives them more opportunity to kind of dig down into that silo of why we're not pulling the same direction. And I keep reverting back to the game model, but I think that's so important because it gives someone a visual, some direction of where to aim, why we're doing certain things. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, 100%. Well said, mate. What about favourite way to spend a day off?
Yeah, I don't get many, as you probably know, but yeah, probably family. I think family makes a lot of sacrifices around people in professional sport, time away, away games, long hours. So probably family. Try and drop my kids off as much as I can and pick them up. And if I've got a couple of hours, I don't mind a game of golf. So not that I'm very good, but yeah, I don't mind the peace and the quiet and a little bit of competition with a few mates. So
Yeah. It's a good social game, but it can also be, if you've got limited time, sometimes it can add to the stress and not exactly what you want
yeah.
on your day for a recharge. But it's good on the good days. What is one popular belief that you hold that goes sort of against mainstream thinking or popular consensus?
Probably two things that stick out. Probably army camps that make players mentally tougher. That's probably one. I just don't see the relevance of in that area of mental toughness, like sleep deprivation, nutrition. We're trying to hammer home, good sleep habits and nutritional habits, and then we're waking them up at 2 a.m. to do a hybrid session or off-feet session. I just thought probably that's one. There are some good. I've seen some good army camps as well. Just to put it out there, that I've seen some armies where they're talking about connection and leadership and problem solving. I do think there is some benefits to that in certain athletes and teams. And probably one thing that from a practical practitioner point of view, probably programming calf raises. I'm not a big fan of programming calf raises. Just that was probably one thing that came from Dean. I kind of was on that kind of philosophy anyway. Then he kind of hammered it home a little bit. For instance, you sprinting mechanics. We kind of everyone knows it's between 6 and 10 times your body weight forces going through your body weight. Then how do you create an overload with a single leg seated calf raise with the amount of forces going through when you're sprinting? So he was more down the plyometric kind of training your calf as a brace, not a pump. So that's probably one thing where we physios and S&Cs in certain departments we have regular discussion around putting some stuff in around calf, but I'm 100% behind it with like injured athletes or compromised athletes. 100% behind that to keep a stimulus. But yeah, I was probably or there's any kind of asymmetries. But yeah, as a fully fit athlete, I probably err on the side of not programming, which causes
About the scrums. Are you for more the isometrics or like weighted
yeah.
prowlers sled marches and things like that, or do you
Oh
think that?
yeah, good question. That's the only one that I can't kind of justify because obviously the force is going through the body. I can't quantify it, but I can imagine. I've never been in a scrum. I've been in a scrum, in a rugby league scrum that doesn't push, but not in a rugby union one where 8 blokes are trying to push another 8 blokes. And I can't imagine what goes through your calf isometrically there. And that's the only way that I could probably justify it, I think. But again, the forces going through your body there, surely a 40, 50 kg single leg calf raise just isn't cutting it. So I would probably, me personally, like a heavy prowler march, a heavy, even training in, if you watch a lot of the, from what I've seen, a lot of the scrum technique sessions and scrum conditioning sessions, surely if you just build that up gradually, as in your exposures, is that not training your calf? That's your stimulus, is actual training. And then building that up. So integrated system, again, talking to your scrum coach around that early stages in pre-season. I think that's a real danger for something that I'd not seen before from a rugby league background, was taking into consideration how much hard work that is isometrically. You get no metrics on a GPS unit, but how hard that is from a load point of view, I think was an eye opener and a learning curve for myself. And sitting down with some players and scrum coaches and kind of learning that and how to progress that and regress that, I think was a real good learning for myself.
100%. Awesome. I like that. Good couple of opinions there. It's good. Provoking some thoughts. What about, we're at the pointy end of 2025, going into 2026 season? What are you excited about, I guess, for the rest of the year, but also moving over to a new year next year?
Yeah, well, with the 2025 season, for the last 4 seasons, I've been lucky enough to make 4 semi-finals, falling short from a grand final and obviously a grand final win. So obviously the goal is always to win and get to a grand final with the Brumbies. And that is, with our squad, we're kind of in a little bit of transition with our squad. So a lot of some players went overseas, some players retired. So within that, kind of got a younger squad, integrating some younger players that have been doing really well in our academy. So probably just building the next Brumbies. Really excited about building the next Brumbies and trying to get athletes involved in the system. Again, this is probably something that we've not mentioned, but staff turnover and player turnover can change game models and the way you want to play and the way you want to train. So kind of, we've got a plan in place. Pre-season starts next week. So we think we've got a plan to improve some areas that we fell down in 225, and hopefully we've recruited the players that can carry out that game plan. So excited to see what it holds. What I like about pro sport is every year's a different story. So yeah, that's probably one thing I do enjoy, is trying to challenge myself to be better every year so I can make athletes better.
Yeah, awesome. Great way to, I guess, end on that note, Ryan. I really appreciate, mate, your time, but also sharing with us your experiences in high performance sport. And I've got a couple of pages of notes, and no doubt the listeners will as well. So appreciate you sharing with us some insights into how we can work as an integrated model in sport, and ultimately whether you're an athlete or a coach. And no doubt there's some takeaways there. For those that have some follow-up questions, where's the best place to connect?
Yeah, it's probably Instagram, Clayton Performance Training. I'll be happy to answer any questions there, or probably my ryan.clayton@brumbies.rugby would probably be another one if you've got a few more questions that don't fit into a direct message.
Yep, perfect. I appreciate it. I'll add both the Instagram link and email address in the show notes, guys. So for those might be listening to the podcast recording in the car on the way to work or whatever you might be doing. You can, once you're finished, park the car, you'll be able to find it easily there. And thanks for everyone that's tuned in live. This will live on our YouTube channel until we release it on our podcast in the next few weeks. So if you've just tuned in at the end there, wind it back to the start. Our next episode is with Josh Ruddy, a sports scientist, which will be at 4 p.m. Australian Standard Time on the 19th of November. So we've got a couple of weeks away. Look forward to seeing you guys then. Boom. Thanks for that.